It's a little bit crazy. You're suddenly blurry now. I wonder if anything was real. All our history's hazy, like driving in the pouring rain. Are we in too deep to heal? You tell me that you're sorry, we'll make up tomorrow. Tell me everything you know I wanna hear. I'm trying to be open, but that window is closing. And either way, I need to make it clear before we're leaving here. Before we're leaving here.
I know it ain't easy, but there's something left to hold on to. We can work it through, you don't have to go. There's a future here with me. We'll find the light in a clouded room. Not giving up until you know.
You tell me that you're sorry, we'll make up tomorrow. Tell me everything you know I wanna hear. I'm trying to be open, but that window is closing. And either way, I need to make it clear before we're leaving here. Either way, I need to make it clear before we're leaving here.
And shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to the house of the Lost Sheep of Israel. I'm Elder Michael Johnson, the pastor over here with the Lost Sheep of Israel and also with King James Bible University. And I want to welcome each and every person here today. And we have a pretty good teaching coming forth in a few minutes. But I do want to recognize and make sure that people do understand this afternoon, for the ones who's all part of the language of biblical law, we do have a class this afternoon at 3 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock Central, and 6 o'clock Eastern time. That will be going. I will be announcing that afterwards. So you guys will be receiving a link periodically throughout the day to where you can be prepared for the class. And we'll be looking forward to that. And with that, a lot of people, they choose to sit out on certain things. But when you want to know something, that how it really inner works on something, how it really goes, this is the best thing to get into. But right now, this class is full, and we're not accepting any more people in there right now. But the main thing is when things like this happen, I'm talking about classes that people should not pass up. but people choose to for whatever reason that they may choose. But when you want to find out something, you want to see how to actually tear down scripture on the back end and really know how to get into the nooks and crannies, that's where you get into. And then also, I want to sit there and I want to welcome all new people. We have quite a few new people that has been coming over here. So I want to welcome you also. And the same thing is, some people we get to meet in some of the classes. Some people we get to meet in Elder Jenkins' Psalms class. And some we just see that's coming in here. So I do want to welcome you. And the main thing is, we're coming over here to get truth. The main thing is, you should not ever have to come to any place, any platform, anywhere in the world, on any internet, where you have to come in and they seeking, if you like what you heard here, that's one of the pull-ins. If you like what you heard here, you'll support the channel. It's the craziest thing in the world. As we said, everybody knows, it's not a secret that YouTube is a free platform. So you don't pay for YouTube. So if you like the channel, if you like the platform, you shouldn't be giving money, because the Most High tells you don't even do that. But most people, he said, I'm gonna give you pastors according to my heart that will feed you with knowledge and understanding. So nowhere in the world you supposed to be paying a man who called himself a preacher, a teacher, or any facet of that form teaching you the word of God. But most people do it, and they still do it. But when you're doing that, it's showing one thing, that you're holding on to a ignorance, to where you sitting there helping Satan's kingdom continue to flow. That's what it's doing. So with that, the same as we say here, people say, they go to these places on tomorrow, they're going to gather together, and they say, forsake not the assembly. But even though it don't say that, it says not forsaken. But the main thing is, they say everybody need to gather together. But what you do, you have to encourage one another. That's the key. You encourage one another to keep forward and moving forward and pressing forward to get to the kingdom, to learn all you can, to where some people going to scoot in on 34, some going to scoot in on 60, and some going to scoot in on 100. That's the key. But for all of us that's gathered together to show the same thing, I do it every blue moon, but show you again. And before we get started out, if you choose, please do. And if you, whatever state you from, just put what state you're from. If you what country you're from, you put what country you're from. This to show you, we gather together and we all in one place right now at this time, and everybody's in different time zone. Because if you're not in Pacific time, you in a different time zone. You in a 100% different time zone than I am. I'm in, but we all meeting together. So you see right here, where we all meeting together, and you see people from all over the United States and all over the world. You see people from UK and all different places. So the main thing is, it's not a point where you got to be in a building, because it's no way possible that all of us can get together and people have to fly in from all these different states and all these different countries. Everybody had to be able to fly in at one time, and to meet at these times. So you can see the craziness, but we can see right now, everybody is meeting, and we're 100% live, and we're meeting here. So again, I want to thank everybody. And we're here to learn about our brother Joseph. Some of it is our forefather, some of it is our brother, some of it is our uncle. But we're here to learn about Joseph. And this is something that I kept behind the scenes, but people are going to find out in this teaching, because I'm going to release a lot of information on Joseph, and based on the story of Joseph. So as people putting in, we just want to let people understand Joseph. So as we're going to sift through these sands of this divine word, we're going to uncover some beautiful gems and relevance. And this is going to appear in the soul of this character that's written literally in the ancient letters. And as we're going to voyage, we're going to embark on this unraveling, these layers of these parables that is set in. So we called upon this to intent to where we're going to dissect their attentions, the very being that's detailed and portrayed in the chapters and the verses. So we're going to unveil the biblical scriptures in the apocryphal area, which we're going to find out many things. So as we're going to be sailing forth on this sea of this history, is what I want you to understand. We're going to sail forth on this sea of history. And we must harness the winds. That's this narrative that we're going to navigate our way with our hearts in this event that's going to hold the bearings on our quest. So these shores should touch within these sacred books, and they're going to landmark some of these chapters, these hidden treasures that these verses themselves going to hold for you. So these explicit and implicated, this thread, this reasoning that can shape even each and every one of us. So we're going to read between the lines because we're going to find the parables, the traditional spiritual understanding of this physical standpoint that we can find truth. How many of these timeless characters converse, engage in these things when we're looking at the grand drama of divinity, of the books, the vital insight that echoes, the dialogue that we still resonate today in the essence of our case as we stand, each and every one of us. This wells the omnipotence of the quail of the biblical narrative, making instance and intervention, imparting wisdom and critical of our argument. So these ancient laws, these commands, is etched in the stones and the tablets of this biblical lecture that we're going to get into, to where we're going to see it going to become the cornerstone of our defense. Each verse carries a unique understanding that turns tides of the case. This is the key. It's going to earn us the past, but we must exhume the historical culture. We got to exhume the historical text, the biblical, that we can recast the understanding, that I even recast even my understanding. The landscape of these shift that is dramatically done, underlying influence of these contexts. So as I tread upon this dangerous territory, that many will say, this dangerous territory, while examining this non-contradictory, it don't contradict at all the scriptures. So with my perceptual view is 100% different than the dynamite against others who hold a literal view of their defense. I want you to clearly see what I'm saying and see where I'm coming from. I will not be sensitive on the multiple interpretations others make of the scriptures. Some will be anticipating their impact on this case. This is 100% true. So this expectation, see, many we're going to really ponder on the enigma on Pharaoh. This is the key. Pharaoh in a visionary of Joseph. So we got to look at the visionary of Joseph, this complex dream that we're going to find that's in Genesis chapter 41. The reaccounts, the baffling, the spectacle, the 7 sticky clines, and we're going to sit there when we look at this. These sickly cline was consuming 7 healthy clines. I want you to clearly get what we're going to get into. And then we're going to get into the ears of corns devouring 7 plump ones. Uncanny vision that's disturbed by Pharaoh and a profound in his court. So Joseph, this man who's divinely and his gift, this ability to interpret the dreams was remembered by the chief butler, whom he had in time past helped. But his uncanny ability, when he read through this message, he was able to reveal a dream, and then he brought him to Pharaoh. So this is where we're going to dig deep into the Holy Scriptures. We're going to illuminate the spiritual understanding, this profound dream, which means to us and what we have to do with this. And everything that this dream is talking about, it has something to do with each and every one of us that is part of Israel. Many think not, but it is. So Joseph's interpretation led to the preparation of 7 years of famine, saving Egypt and the surrounding nations from devastation. So this is what we got to clearly know. So the narrative provides us a deeper understanding to provide wisdom and divine guidance. So with this, our exploration, we got to dust these lanes off. We need to go through the scriptures and look at the point. The enlightening journey that lay people who wishes to understand the ancient texts, who look forward to embracing this enriching quest, this passion, this rigor that it deserves. So we need to begin with the spiritual odyssey. We're going to get into all this here, and we want to understand exactly what was going on. Because we got to see this and what it was talking about. So in Genesis chapter 41 and verse 1, we're going to start looking at this. We're going to start getting deep into this. Because the heart of Pharaoh, we're going to find out something. This is a twofold story. I always taught it as a onefold, but I'm going to show you the true twofold. And I did that for reasons, but that's okay. Because they still don't know the reason why. But it was one to catch these churches of Christ, which I caught them in a lie, and then they couldn't respond to it. But that's okay. Then the other one, I caught the camps. And that's the ones I was trying to catch the first time. But we're going to look at this, and we're going to go through these scriptures and get a real good understanding here. In Genesis chapter 41, and we're going to be looking at one, and we're going to look at the heart of Egypt, about Pharaoh. He's this great ruler, disturbed by this perplexing dream, and we're going to see how it's going to echo in his dream, the images of these 7 cows, well favored, and then they end up being devoured by 7 sickly ones. So we got to see how this symbols, these metaphors, how it speaks of this to where we can decode the profound spiritual message to each and every one of us to reveal to us this dream, but we have to do it in sequences to where we can develop a deeper layer in a spiritual understanding where the symbols, which transform these divine signs and the dreams, the gates to where we can see the God's revelation on what he's trying to show us. So we need to embark on this and get a very good understanding on it. And we're going to start right here in Genesis chapter 41, but we're going to start at verse 1. And he says, and it came to pass in the time's end 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed. And remember, he stood by the river. We're going to read through and we're going to come back and we're going to check some things in 1 second. It says, and behold, so and remember, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat flesh. And they fed in the meadow. And remember, see, it keeps saying, and remember, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored, in lean flesh, and stood by on the other kine upon the bank of the river. Verse 4, and it says, and the ill-favored, lean flesh kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fatted kine. So Pharaoh awoke. I want you to pay attention to all what's going on, because we're going to go back and we're going to be looking at a lot of this. But he awoke, and he slept and dreamed a second dream. I'm just saying with it, but he dreamed a second time, but he dreamed a second dream. And remember, 7 ears of corn came up, one stalk, and ranked in good. Remember, 7 thin ears and blasted, the east wind sprang up after them. And the 7th ear, the 7 ears, devoured the 7 ranked and full ears, and Pharaoh awoke. And remember, it was a dream. It was a dream. This is where we got to dig into. This is where we have to make sure we have our pens, our papers, and make sure we got to take these carnal eyes off, and we have to look at everything spiritually to where we can understand what was happening. So this recounts of Pharaoh 2 dreams, which later going to be interpreted by Joseph. So the dream featured 7 healthy cows being eaten by 7 sickly cows. Then we had 7 full ears of corn being devoured by 7 thin blight ears. So this is it's repeating itself. I want you to make sure you just type that down. It's repeating itself. 7. That's repeating something. But we want to find out exactly what that means. Because Pharaoh's dream is critical, and it represents a period of 7 years. 7 years. And he's repeating this dream. So as we dive into the spiritual significance, we got to look at the elements and how it references the scriptures, comparing the spiritual things with spiritual. Not using spiritual things with carnal ways and how people understand. We got to look at spiritual things with spiritual. We got to compare spiritual things with spiritual things. So Pharaoh's dream number is 7. 7 holds a significance throughout the Bible, which is associated until completion. That's what it actually does. Until completion. It represents a cycle of 7 years. Let's look at something, and we're going to start getting some better understanding here. And we're going to drop down here. We want to go here real quick. I want to go somewhere. And we're going to start picking this apart. We're going to look at Genesis chapter 41. We're going to go to the same place, but we're going to look at another spot. We're going to go down because I want to keep those right there in front of us. So we're going to go to 41. We're going to look at verse 26. The reason why I got to keep these two all together, I want to make sure. You see right here in verse 26, it says here, and then you're going to see once we get all the ingredients together, we're going to start baking this cake. It says the 7 good client of 7 years. Exactly what we were saying. Until completion of that, what's going to happen? That's a full thought. Now it's telling us in the 7 good years or 7 years, the dream is one. So it's only one dream. But he's showing them in 2 different ways. But it's only one dream. Even though he had 2 dreams, it's still one dream. In fact, let's do this. We're going to go to Sirach, and let's look at Sirach chapter 33. We're going to go to verse 7. We're going to move it down to 9. And I'm having to do this way because we need to bake this cake a certain way. It says, why do one day excel another? And when as all the light of every day of the year is of the sun. Watch what happens. Watch what's getting ready to go down. By the knowledge of the Lord that they were distinguished, and he altered the seasons and feasts. Some of them he had made high days and hallowed them, and some he had made ordinary days. Some people might not understand what's getting ready to go down here, but it's telling us right here. The key is there. The key is right there because it's telling us exactly what's going on. So what we're going to do, we got to break a lot of this down to where we can get what's happening. And I want you to make sure, because this tale about Joseph, this is a humble beginning, what we got to look at, but we got to see the reinforcement at this beginning, because at the beginning, even as him being a shepherd in Canaan, in his ascension as a ruler of Egypt. The narrative was filled by the divine providence. So this shows you about this here, even where it talks about here in 41:5. And he slept and dreamed the second one. We're going to get all this together. So now we cannot distress, and the same thing is, you got to remember, he's in Canaan. And he even later told his brother, because he had no business to be in Egypt, but his brothers that did something. But then you'll see even later how he's going to talk about it to his brother, talking about, be not angry with yourself, for ye have sold him, because he was sent before them to save lives. God sent them ahead of them. But as people will sit there and they're going to think, well, they sold his brother, they sold their brother, they did all these things. I want you to take your time. I want you to put on your spiritual cap. Don't see, when we look at carnal things, you're going to compare carnal things with carnal. We're going to compare spiritual things with spiritual. So seemingly that's going to seem contradictory, but it's not. They're going to seem cruel, act of betrayal. But it's part of God's plan to preserve life. That's this overreaching biblical theme on what we're going to see. And I'm going to show you how this actually works out in Genesis, and we're going to look at 37. Genesis 37. And we're going to come over here to verse 28. Now I'm going to start unrevealing some things that I normally kept secret, that I normally don't do openly. And you're going to see this as I go through the teaching. It says, in their pass by Mennonites, merchantmen, and one drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites. They sold him to the Ishmaelites. These are Abraham's firstborn children, Ishmael, for 20 pieces of silver. And they bought him, and they brought Joseph to Egypt. You see exactly what's going on. And they brought him right to Egypt. So the brothers' act of selling Joseph into slavery was a motion of a chain events. I want you to understand something. This chain events had to happen. So once they sold Joseph, that put in motion of these events, which led him to a place of prominence in Egypt, enabling him to save numerous lives at the time of a severe famine. We're going to find out how this all happened. That's what we're going to be looking at. And how he was made and how he prospered at the hand. Because Joseph, early days in Egypt, emphasizing, it tells you the Lord was with Joseph. Actually, let's go here. I want to show you something that he was with him the entire time. And we're going to go right back over here to Genesis chapter 39. And we're going to look at 2 and 3 to show you the exact same thing. It don't change. Even though he was sold, what you want to see here in Genesis chapter 39, verse 2, it says, and the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. See, it didn't matter. The Lord was with this man. You can do what you want. But if the Lord is with him, the Lord is with him. Verse 3. And the master saw that the Lord was with him. His master seen this. That the Lord had made him all that he did prosper at his hand. So everything Joseph did, he always prospered. His master seen this, but we're going to find out some peculiar things on this. Some peculiar things about this here. Because this is actually not talking about Pharaoh. I told you this is a twofold that I usually teach as onefold. But we're going to find out how. So Joseph's early days, it's emphasizing what's going on here. So Joseph's faith, you can see, it remained steadfast with the Most High God of Israel. No matter what, he stayed with the Most High God of Israel. it leading him to gain favor and to rise in position in the responsibility of Potiphar's household. Potiphar's household. This is where the catch come in, but I'm going to see who's going to catch it. However, even in Joseph's thrive, he encountered further tribulations. He encountered false accusations, and he was thrown in prison. I want you to keep all this in mind. His imprisonment, as in the scriptures, it was set in motion. Even on these series of unfortunate and unfair circumstances, Joseph, who had been sold into slavery by his own brothers, was bought by Potiphar, and Potiphar, the catch is this: Potiphar was an officer of Pharaoh. He just was the chief officer. And this is what we're going to find out. This is why I said it's a twofold taught as one. And that's what I always did. So he found him rising in Potiphar's house due to the integrity and the favor that God had upon him. But you'll see these two event stories is tied to Pharaoh. So as I blend them, we're going to see where Potiphar's spirit tried him. We're going to see as Pharaoh's spirit tried him. And these two events are blended into one outcome. That's the catch. But that's beside the point. Let's look at verse 4. It says, and Joseph found grace in the sight, and he served him and made him overseer over his house and all that he had, and put into his hand. But it gets better. It gets way better than this. So now we know he's in Potiphar's house. This is interesting. So he put him in charge of everything. But Joseph's success stint really on Potiphar's house and was abruptly interrupted because of a false accusation of Potiphar's wife. I want you to keep this in mind. This is the catch. So when he rejected Potiphar's wife, it angered and this refusal, seeing it, and then she ended up plotting against him. Let's go down a little bit. We're gonna go because we want to get all the evidence. We want to get all the evidence here. We're going to pick it up at 39:11. It says, and it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business. And there was none of the men in the house there within. And she caught him by the garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and he fled and got himself out. He got him out. That's what he did. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left the garment in her hand, she was fled forth, and then this is where she set it up. And she called unto the men in her house, and spake unto them, saying, see, he had brought in a Hebrew who looked on us, who unto us to mock us. And he came unto me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. Plot. The straight plot. This is what goes on. She got a refusal. She ended up plotting. So this is what goes on. So she saying that he was mocking, but now the deceit of Potiphar's wife led Joseph unjustly to be put in prison. This is the twofold. This is why it goes twofold. Because we're going to find out some beautiful things now. So I want to make sure everybody got your pen, you have your paper, because we're going to go through some things. I'm going to try to take my time on it. So make sure you have your pen and paper to write down these verses to show you how this actually aligns. So just making sure you got your paper. Let's go back up to Genesis 39. We're going to look at verse 1. Everybody with me? I want to make sure everybody is with me. Everybody with me? Just say aye. You got your pencil and paper? Them are the ones I want to say aye. Them are the ones I'm looking for, because we getting ready to go through some things. Okay. All right. We getting ready to put in some work. We getting ready to put some work in. And that's what we do. That's what we do here at the House of the Lost Sheep of Israel. We put in work. We have to find out what's going on with our forefathers, so we'll know what was happening. So right here in Genesis 39:1, it says, and Joseph was brought down into Egypt, and Potiphar, you see right here, Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. So we see Potiphar is an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard. An Egyptian brought him in the hand of the Ishmaelites and had brought him down thither. So we see that's what's going on. That's what I said what was happening. Now we want to understand. So as we see here, he was sold into slavery, but Potiphar is who brought him, the Ishmaelites. So he the one got him from them. So to complete this, but God had favor on him. So now we jump down to verse 4. And Joseph found grace in the sight, and he served him and made him overseer over his house, Potiphar's house. Everybody with me? I want you to stay with me on this, because we're gonna get into some whole bunch of things here. So as this went on, we're gonna see how this continually goes on. Now we drop down to verse 20. As all this stuff is going on, we see some stuff happening. Verse 20 says, and Joseph's master took him, who? Potiphar, took him and put him into prison, in place where the king's prisoners were bound. You see what's going on. So Potiphar had the same power as the king, and he put him in prison where the king put people in prison. Same place, same time, same issues. So Potiphar had that kind of weight. So he put him in a place where the king prison was bound, and he was there in prison. So now Joseph in prison where the king put people in prison. He's actually in more trouble than not, but he gets better. So now as we go down through here, we got to look at Pharaoh was this ruler when we're going to get into 41. So Pharaoh was the ruler of Egypt with this troubling dream. And with this, he had to, it was no one who could really interpret this dream to his satisfaction. So after 2 full years, Joseph's imprisonment, it was Pharaoh, not Potiphar. It was Pharaoh who brought him out the dungeon. Potiphar put him in prison. Pharaoh took him out of prison. Did you catch what's going on? This is why this is a twofold teaching. This is why it was taught twofold all the time as one. So now we got to see, it was Pharaoh that elevated him to the high position again. But now he's elevated not over the house, he elevated over all of Egypt. Let's look at something. 41, we're going to pick this one up. We're going to go down to 39. You got to stay with me, because if not, I promise you get lost. And it says, and Pharaoh said to Joseph, now we see Joseph is dealing with Pharaoh now. He says, for as much God has showed thee all this, there is none to discreet and wise as thou art in perfection and beauty. Now he's telling you something. Thou shalt be over my house. I'm going to put you over my house, according to thy word, and shall all my people be ruled. And only the throne will I be greater than thou. Same thing, no different. But people teach it as a blend because they don't know the difference between the two. That's a twofold teaching. That's where you see, because Potiphar was his main man at the first time, but he ended up demoting him, and then he put him there. That's what actually ended up happening. So Potiphar was his high-ranking officer under Pharaoh, and it was nothing separated him but that king's seat. However, he put Joseph under him, but when it came in, and his wife lied on Joseph, he put Joseph in prison. But he put him in the wrong prison. He should have put him in another prison, but he put him in Pharaoh's prison. Pharaoh and them had him brought out because he was in there. Well, let me not get it too far ahead. We're going to go through it. So we see what went on there. We looked at Genesis 39. We looked at 1 and 6. And let me make sure. 39. But we're going to look at 1 through 6. So we knew what happened. So it tells you who bought him. We're looking at that in 39:1. It says, and Joseph was brought down in Egypt, and Potiphar, the officer of Pharaoh, captain, the guard, brought him by the hand of the Ishmaelites. So we see this all the way as we go down. But let's pick it up at verse 5. We're going to hit 5 and 6. It says, it came to pass in the time that he had made him overseer in his house, and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. So you see right here. So the Spirit of God blessed Potiphar's house for the sake of Joseph. And blessing of the Spirit of God was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. So no matter what this man did, he was always being blessed. Verse 6. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hands, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. Everybody catching this? Let me read this again. Hopefully everybody get this. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand. That's a full thought. You see it right here. It says, and he knew not aught he had. I want you to meditate on that for a minute. He didn't know what he had. Only the bread, because that's all saving, only the bread which he did eat. So he only kept the knowledge that he did eat. He ain't paying attention to Joseph. That's the problem. That's the catch. That's why it's a twofold. But that's beside the point. And it says, and Joseph was a goodly person, meaning he was a handsome guy. And he was well favored. So he was a handsome guy when he be around other people, around women, they like looking at Joseph, is what this is saying. So as we're looking at this, we can see as this Bible tells us, he was sold, but he was bought by Potiphar. And then Potiphar was an officer of Pharaoh, who was a captain of the guards. So despite this status, Joseph found favor with Potiphar due to this industrious and this evident being blessed upon God, which was a result. So Potiphar made him overseer over his house. And he eventually put in Joseph in charge of over his entire estate, is what he ended up doing. And you see that there. But we're going to go down a little bit. We want to get some real good context. So I'm going to read from 7. We're going to go down to 23 to where we can get some real good information, to where we can be solid on what we understand. And I'm going to start here and I'm going to change it here, but I'm not going to highlight all the rest of them, but we're going to go down. It says, and it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph. And she said, lie with me. So you can see it started with her. It came from her. It didn't come from him. It came from her. But you can see later she lied. We talked about it earlier. We just recapping everything. So we can see that she lied. It says, but he refused and said unto his master's wife. Now you see, he said to Potiphar's wife, remember my master was not what it was with me in this house. He committed all that he hath in my hands. So you can see he's saying that. So the same thing here. Now this same thing here, I use as the twofold. Because we'll say this is Pharaoh. That's the twofold. But that's beside the point. It says, there is none greater in this house than I. Neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? That was the whole point. Same thing is. He's the same position, same power. Same position, same power. This is what we got to pay attention to. Let's move down some more. It came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day. I'm just thinking about, okay, the only reason I'm laughing, I'm laughing, and just to share this with you, a lot of people, if you see even on TV movies, you see how men be on construction sites, how they'll see a beautiful woman walking down the street, how everybody they'll gawk and whistle and do all these things, but that's what I'm laughing at, because she's doing this. Potiphar's wife, she's speaking to Joseph. I'm talking about, so you can understand probably some of the vulgar things she might was telling Joseph as he got to work in the house with this woman. She probably saying all kind of crazy stuff to him. But it says, came to pass, she spake to Joseph day by day. And that's what she doing. Sitting there like, boy, you've been in my dream all night. I've been chasing you all night. No telling what is in her dream. No telling what is her dream on. So now you telling this. So it says that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. Because this is all she's talking about. She's talking about being together. She's talking about lying with her. So you can understand the conversation probably coming out of her mouth. But it gets better. And it came to pass about the time that Joseph went into the house to do his business. See, now we're getting all the understanding here. To do his business, there was none of the men of the house there within, which there was nobody there but her and him. She caught him by his garment. So she didn't caught him now. Lie with me. I don't even know what to say here. Nobody in the house. She didn't caught him by the garment. Okay, I got you now. You lie with me. He left his garment in her hand. So he tore out that garment, fled out, and he fled and got him out. So he got out of there. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand, she fled forth. And you know she was mad because he's denying her. He's denying to lay with her. That she called unto the men of the house, spake unto them, saying, see, he had brought in this Hebrew unto us to mock us. And he came unto me to lie with me, and I cried out a loud voice. You see, this is a total lie. Total straight up lie. Now you can see this is a lie. And it came to pass. It came to pass when he heard it lifted up his voice and cried, and he left his garment with me, and she fled and got him out. She laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. This is where the problem is. So she kept it there with her because she wanted to make sure okay, you're not going to lay with me? Oh, I got something for you. I'm going to wait till my husband get out. Because you know that'll burn up any man. So I'm going to wait till he get home. But the crazy thing is, why did she got the garment? But that's beside the point. Okay. And it says, and she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant, which thou brought unto us, that same little slickster that you think that you got was okay, and you put him over all the house, which thou hast brought unto us, came in unto me to mock me. So you know that's going to make her husband mad. You know that's going to upset him. And it came to pass as she lifted up, as I lifted up my voice, I cried, and he left his garment with me and fled out. Boy. And it came to pass when his master heard these words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that he was wroth, that his wrath was kindled. Yeah. Tell me any common sense man or woman would sit, they gonna come off this way. If their wife or their husband spoke like this, all of them gonna come off that way. And there's nothing he can do. There's nothing he can do. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison and placed him there in the king's prison where he was bound. So he put him in the king's prison. Because normally king's prison, you only going to come out of that death, or you going to scoot out of there on your life. But mainly, if you be put in there by Potiphar, mainly you end up getting killed. Because the king don't have no use for you. That's normally what happens. That's why most likely he put him there. Because he knew, okay, you only going to come out of there on death. That's it. And he was there into prison. But the main thing is, we got to still see what happened. But the Lord was with Joseph. See, it didn't change. The Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. So now, probably every time they needed somebody to die, or when they need to play sport, to have somebody killed, to have somebody chased by the lions and killed and all that. See, because they into all this stuff. That keeper made sure Joseph was never part of that. Joseph had to never be indulged on that stuff. So what happened, he was the keeper of the prison, and he watched over Joseph. Verse 22, and the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. You see how Joseph has serious weight in jail, and he goes better. And the keeper of the prison looked not upon anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. So everything this man doing, he's sitting there like, man, I ain't going to get into this too much because I be talking about myself too bad. That's almost like Joseph was like the lucky rabbit foot to this man. Like the dumb thing I bought when I was a kid. Same dumb thing I bought when I was a kid, but this man had a real one. He had some, when he did whatever he touched, he's prospered because of Joseph. Just theoretically, that's what's going on. So let's go down a little bit more. We're going to look at it a little bit more now. And you're going to see all these false accusations what happened here. But let's go down here. We're going to go down to 41. We're going to go down to 41:9. And we're going to get a little bit more. We're going to pick it up right here, because we're going to see how some of Pharaoh's main people end up, being around the king. But what ended up happening is how the king ended up finding out about who Joseph is down there. Because this is how he eventually found out who Joseph was. And it's here. It says, then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh. Exactly what happened. He says, saying, I do remember my faults this day. And Pharaoh was wroth with his servants and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house. Both me, you see what he put him in the guard's house. Both me and the chief baker, and we dreamed a dream one night, and I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. But watch what's starting to happen here. And when we dreamed the dream one night, and he dreamed, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was with us a young man. So now he's telling what's going on. It was a young man, a Hebrew, a servant of the captain. See, now he's telling you who he belongs to. He was the servant of the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. Each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me restored to my office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh So now you see Pharaoh. Now we see what's going on with Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand the dream and interpret it. Now you see, this is the first time the king ever actually laid eyes on this guy. Everybody see that. This is the first time the king first ever seen Joseph. If he seen Joseph, he never paid attention, but this is the first time the king ever actually paid attention to Joseph. Any other time, he was always dealing with Potiphar. That's what's going on. So now let's look at this. Verse 16. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not me. You see, that's the key. That's the key to everything. He says, it's not me. It's God should give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Write that down. He's going to give him an answer of peace. That's your key. That's the same thing. That's why I tell everybody the same thing. You thanking me? Don't thank me. You're thanking the wrong person. That's why I say that all the time. I say it constantly. You're thinking the wrong one. This makes me look smart, but all this comes from God. So you thank God. That's it. I'm just a vessel he used. Nothing more, nothing less. But the thing is, when you see person can give you wisdom of God and God giving you this wisdom, don't never, ever put it on that man. You can sit there, thank you for that, but that wisdom is from God. It's not from me. That's coming from God. So that's why I always sit there just leave me as Flavor Flav. I'm just telling you what time it is. That's why I say that. The same thing here. He's telling you right up front, it is not me. God should give Pharaoh an answer of peace. That's why he's saying that. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, in my dream, remember, I stood by the bank of the river. Yeah, I wasn't in your dream. I know that's what probably what he was saying in his mind. He says, and remember, they came up out of the river, 7 kine, fat flesh, well favored, and they fed in the meadow. And remember, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill favored, and lean flesh, and such as never saw at all land of Egypt of baldness. In the ill favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. Now we got an issue. And when they have eaten up them, I could not have known that they have eaten them. But they were still ill favored. They were still small. So you couldn't figure this out. It is beginning, and I saw woke, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears corn, 1 stalk full and good. And remember, 7 ears withered thin, and blast with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and I told this unto the magicians. It's wrong people to tell it to. Told it to the magicians, but there was none that can declare it to me. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. It's only one dream. That's why the same thing. This whole parable is a twofold, is one. That's why I was able to use that all the time. Because it's only one. It's only one understanding in this. God has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. So he's letting Pharaoh know what he's about to do. But it's way deeper than what this is. Way deeper than this. In the seven kine, the 7 years, and the seven good years is one dream. In the 7 thin, ill-favored kine came up after the 7 years. The 7 empty blasts with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. So he's telling him exactly, he's just spitting it out, telling him exactly what it is. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showed unto Pharaoh. Remember, there comes 7 years of great plenty throughout the land, throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years famine, and all plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. So he's telling me exactly this was getting ready to go down. And the plenty shall not be known by the reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. Same as people sitting there talking about, what has God done for me? When have you loved us? This is the problem people have with God. And then it's telling you, it says, in for the dream was doubled into Pharaoh twice. Exactly. It came to him twice, but it's still one dream. And it came about this thing established by God, and God will shortly bring to pass. So he's telling him exactly what's going on, exactly what's going to happen. So with Joseph's ability to interpret this dream became in Pharaoh's court, he interpreted so accurately this dream, talking about the butler and the baker. But the result, Pharaoh had this troubling dream, and none of his magicians, his wise men, no one can interpret his dream. But the main thing is, he was put in Pharaoh's prison. And who remembered him? Who wanted to get favor with Pharaoh? The butler. That's why he said, hey, he remembered Joseph. Hey, I remember this guy who was in prison. He was down there doing this thing. That's why he did that. He was able to speak up to where he can get favor with the king. So we see this here. So now with this, now everything goes on. But we'll see he ended up promoting Joseph. We got to go down to 41. We're going to look at 37. So he ended up promoting Joseph. So we're going to go ahead again. So he promoted Joseph. It says, and the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh. So the understanding was good in Pharaoh's eyes, and in the eyes of his servant. So everybody's cool with that understanding. Man, this dude tore this down. Yeah. So everybody's cool with this. And Pharaoh said unto his servant, can we find such one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? So now you got Pharaoh talking about the Spirit of God, because Joseph ain't never changed. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as you have showed all this there's none discreet and wise as thou art, in perfection and beauty. Thou shalt be over my house according to thy word, and all my people shall be ruled, and only the throne will be greater than thou. So you the main man. The throne gonna separate me and you. That's it. This is where it started going down. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. I done set you over the house of bondage. And Pharaoh took off his ring and put it upon Joseph. He put it upon his hand and arrayed him with vestures and fine linen, and put gold and chains about his neck, and made him ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow and knee, and he had made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Understand what made him ruler over all of Egypt. People can have a problem with this. It made him ruler over all Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh. Most people ain't gonna even know what he's saying. What he's saying. He's telling you exactly what he's doing. That's the catch. But I'm want people to meditate on this. And later you can probably send me an email and let me know what you think or whatever. But he's telling you, Pharaoh telling you who he is. Right on the spot he's telling you. He said, I am Pharaoh. Okay, let me give it. And without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. He's telling, that's okay. It's all right. And Pharaoh called Joseph Zephaniah-Paneah, and gave him his wife and the daughter of Pharaoh, the priest of On. Yep. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Exactly the point. So this is what's going on. But you see Joseph's journey from being Potiphar's house, being over, getting fired, getting thrown in prison, all these transitions, Joseph relied on one person, God. God, in the understanding of God. And he was recognized all around and eventually led him to the rise of power as the narrative, as it illustrates, God providence and guidance led to times of hardship, but look what happened. You see right there in 19 and 39. Let me see, just 39? No, I want 39. I want Genesis 39. 39:19. So you see right here, it says, came to pass, and the master heard the words of his wife, saying, after this manner he did this, and the servant was wroth and kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison. So you see right here, when this happened, despite this false accusation, and why I want you to see this, despite this false accusation, he still rose in power. The thought, verse 21, but the Lord was with Joseph. See, we can't get out the point. The Lord was with Joseph. This is going somewhere that's going to help each and every one of us. And as we see this, God gave him favor in the sight of the keepers of this prison. So Joseph might have seemed to be far from being this instrument of being to where he can preserve all people and where he's destined to become. Yet, even while in prison walls, the Lord was with him and showed him kindness and granted him favor. So you see in chapter 40, it marks this turning point that Joseph gives. The dreams of interpretations brought light, accurately interpreting the dreams of his fellow inmates, the cupbearer and the baker. Joseph established his reputation as a diviner of dreams. So throughout his talents, it seemed unrelated to anything. His ultimate role as this savior was a critical piece to this divine puzzle. I want you to remember something. I want you to see something. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 25, verse 23. And this is why you see this. It says, and his Lord said unto him, well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast faithful over a few things. I make thee ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. Enter into the joy of the Lord. Everybody catch that? Did it say enter into the kingdom? No. Okay. Yeah. Everybody should get the point. Enter into the joy of the Lord. You see this a capital? Do you see a capital L, or do you guys see the lowercase L? Tell me what you see. You tell me what you see. You see the silhouette pictures everywhere. So this is enter into the joy of the ruler. That's all this is saying. Joy of that master. That's all it's saying. The desired thing. That's what he's saying. You enter into the joy. Meaning you gonna be running things here. That's all he's saying. Technically, that's all he's saying. So we understand that. You've been the ruler over little, I'm gonna make you a ruler over a lot. But this is also shows you the silhouette picture that marks everything between Joseph and Jacob, who was later named Israel. The faces he struggled in their lives as emerged to where they triumphed, and subsequently there was given this new authority and responsibility that you see right here. You see it right here. So the same thing with Jacob transformation. We're going to see part of that. Jacob transformation, we're going to look at Jacob chapter 32. I want to show you this because this is a silhouette picture. 22:24. And you see the same thing. Jacob was left alone. Same thing like being in prison, but that's beside the point. And it says, and Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled with a man until the breaking of day. And when the man saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched and hollowed his thigh, and hollowed Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. Exactly what was happening. But we want to see how this actually ended up going. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go except thou bless me. And he said unto him, so just letting you know, this not God. He said, what is thy name? He don't even know his name. Meaning this messenger don't even know Jacob's name. He said, what is that name? He said, Jacob. So now he tells him, but this ain't where it got sealed. The same as when Joseph was in Potiphar's house. It was not sealed, but that's beside the point. This is a twofold. And he said, what is thy name? He said, Jacob. He said, thy name should be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For thou is a prince, and thou hast power with God and with men, as he has has prevailed. That's what he's saying. That's what he's making clear to him. So we can see Joseph's extension, the same thing you see in 39. We're going to go to verse 1. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt. You can see right here, this was his low part. Right here. That was his low part. Then you get to verse 4, you see, and Joseph found grace in the sight of God. And he was overseer over the house. This is the first one, but this is a twofold deal. That's why I kept saying that. You look at verse 20. Let's go down to verse 20. Let's look at it a little bit more. Joseph's master took him and put him into prison. Remember, he put him in prison. He put him in prison. But let's drop down to 41:4. Let's go down to 41:14. And we'll see the same thing, what's going on. 41:14. And Pharaoh sent. So you see the same thing. And Pharaoh sent, but you'll see the same thing happen with Jacob. Then God actually told him, thy name is Jacob. He knew exactly who he was. But Pharaoh called Joseph and brought him hastily out of the dungeon and shaved his head and shaved himself and changed his raiment and came unto Pharaoh. Exactly what's going on. And you see this happening all the time. When we get down to 39 to 41, you'll see this goes on again. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has showed thee all these things, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art, and thou shalt be over my house according to thy word, and shall be over and all my people be ruled. So he's putting him over everybody. This is why this was going down this way. Twofold story. So both these stories, you can see where God's hands is throughout they challenging, is shaping us for greater responsibility. Jacob, he wrestled with this angel. He wrestled with this message, proving his strength in earning this new name, which is the new path as Israel. Similarly, because he has to struggle. We have to struggle, each and every one of us. If we're going to be, we're Israelites, we prospects, and if we want to sit there and we want to prevail, be Israel, we have to sit there. We got struggles we got to go through. We have struggled. We got to keep pushing. Jacob, he struggled until the daybreak. Doesn't matter. We have to keep pushing forward, no matter what. That's what this is getting into. We have to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing. Don't change anything. So the same understanding, when Joseph, when he came up hastily, when all these things happened, we have to see how all this went. Actually, let's go back over here and let's look at something. So when we look at this in Sirach, the same identical thing, but many of us, we'll sit there and we give up. Many of us sit there and we want to take the easy way out. And for verse 14, let's look at something. In Sirach chapter 33, verse 14. So we got to find out what's going on. So no matter what happens, evil, good is set against evil and life against death. No matter what. Good is set against evil, life against death. So the godly against the sinner and the sinner against the godly. This is clear. It's right here in front of you. Verse 15, it tells us this. So look upon all the work of the Most High. And there are two and two, one against another. All the time. All the time. So when you look at this over here in Genesis chapter 41, verse 5, and he slept and he dreamed a second time, we see what's going on now. So when Joseph answered Pharaoh, what did he say in verse 6? He said, this not me. He's saying it's not me. 41:15, Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I had dreamed a dream, and none can interpret it. Canst thou tell me about this. Can you tell me about this dream? I need somebody to tell me about this dream. Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not me. Dude, it's not me. I can tell you what time it is, but it's not me. This gesture signifies the turning point, a moment where it attests that God's work in his mysterious, his profound ways, which is coverage and seemingly desperate path into this grand tapestry of this divine purpose that now is upon Joseph. So this reaccount where Pharaoh encounters with Joseph, and he's telling Joseph he had a dream, and nobody can interpret it. And Joseph sitting there saying, hey, dude, I'm going to tell you, but it's not me. It is not me. This passage reveals Joseph's profound faith to his humility. We have so many people when they want to sit there and talk about like they got all this knowledge, but then they want to pump it as if it's them. And it's not. It's God. So many people like doing this. They'll sit there, oh yeah, well, I got all this. No, that's God's knowledge. So when he was presented with this main opportunity, by claiming the ability to interpret a dream, the attributes, his skills, is not himself, but it's God. That gives him, when it's God, then that body, that vessel that's sitting here has no limits. So God can sit there and put anything in this person he wants. Why? Because this person is not going to try to take credit. But most people sit there and they always want to sit there and talk about, oh yeah, I know this, I know, and they're going to take the credit. And it's not them, it's God. So God just takes his credit back. And that's why a lot of people walk around not knowing what's going on about the word of God. It's this simple. But he's telling, as I said earlier, remember that phrase? God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. A peace. That's the hint of this divine work that Joseph recognized, that the interpretation provides not merely an exercise in a dream analysis, so to say, but a message of peace from God himself to Pharaoh. And the main part about this, Joseph, a Hebrew prisoner, became the conduit of God's wisdom to Pharaoh. He became the conduit. He became the most powerful man in Egypt. This dramatic reversal role. I actually want to show you something. Let's build on something. Let's look at Romans. Romans 8:28. We're gonna pick up something. Romans 8:28. We'll see here. And we know that all things work together for good. To them that love who? God. All things. So no matter what they did to Joseph, Joseph just going to get favored no matter what. Why? Because God going to make all of it work together for good. For them who love who? God. To them who are called according to his purpose. He was called for a purpose. And he's sitting there, I'm just here, bro. I'm just here to tell you what time it is. Now, I didn't know I had to go to all this. I didn't know I had to go to jail and do all this. But hey, but I'm here. But I'm here. That's what he's letting him know. And then Pharaoh told him the dream. As he told him the dream, you see all the symbolism that's happening. So the same thing you see in verse 17. We would look at 16, 17, and 41. Genesis 41, verse 16 and 17, but we're going to go to 17. We're going to go down a little bit. And we'll see it right there. It says, and Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not me, but it's God. And it's God shall give Pharaoh answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, in my dream, I have stood by the bank of the river. And he proceeded to tell him. That's why this happens. How they was well favored, some wasn't well favored. This is why this happens. So then by consuming these, the well favored ones, this is what will start going on. But what we have to do, this small portion, this what we're talking about, Pharaoh's dream, is filled with symbolism. Symbolism is what it's filled with. telling us about the forthcoming of a hardship. The severe years of abundance shall be forgotten. Happened with a lot of us. This happens quite a bit. We will forget what was said. We forget what was happening. Why? Because this is what we do. We have to remember, for us to get to the good, we have to remember what's going on there. So by consuming the fatty cows, becoming healthier, these lean cows, it didn't happen. But just as a small portion of spiritual insight, Pharaoh's dream, filled with symbolism, this forthcoming hardship to serve these years of this abundance, showing you the small part, as Pharaoh is telling them about these, all in chapter 41. He had this dream and talked about these 7 years. So Bible, when we look at something, we have to make sure what we have to hold on to, because in the context on what we was talking about, the complexity of symbolism is embedded within the continual dream that we've seen in 41. We have to understand that, because it talks about what the Bible references, and it represents a harvest, meaning harvest talking about fruit of our works. So this blessing of the substance, these 7 years came up in stock, and it represents the 7 years of a bountiful harvest, prospering, but it's mirroring 7 years of these fattest cows in the previous dream. But the same imagery, these 7 years withered. It was blasted with the wind, they sprung up. Let's build on some of this and get to the point where I want to show you. And we're going to find this in Ezekiel. In Ezekiel chapter 17. We're going to look at 17 verse 10. It says, and remember, being planted, shall ye prosper? That's asking you the question. Shall it prosper? Shall it not utterly wither when the east wind touches it? Shall it wither in the Pharaohs where it grew? Will it? In fact, you look at it a little bit more. We go over to Hosea chapter 13. And we'll look at verse 15. It says, though he be fruitful among his brethren. You see what it's going? He be fruitful among his brethren. An east wind shall come, and the wind of the Lord shall come up from the wilderness and spring up and become dry, and his fountain shall be dried up. And he shall spoil in the treasures of his pleasant vessels. Are we paying attention to what's going on? See, this first dream is telling you about something that's withered, devoured. Leaves us with magicians bewildered. We're like perplexed by this reoccurring theme, consumption without this apparent grain or change, illustrating the forthcoming of a famine that obliterates the memories of prosperous years. This is going to happen. This is happening in a lot of our lives right now. And then many of us will sit there and say, wherein have you loved us, Lord? Really? Don't want to be tried. Don't want to be tested. This repetition theme of this 7 years plentiful tells us. And we have to bear in mind. Actually, let's go back over here. I want to show you. We have to bear in mind 25. In 41, 25 to 32, it says, and Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. This is one. A lot of us have good, but we don't want the bad. But if we prepare correctly for the good, when the good is there, when the bad come, we can weather it. We can weather it. But is that true for all of us? A lot of us is not going to have our candles lit. A lot of us not going to have oil. A lot of us not going to do a lot of things. We just sit there and base during the time of good, and then when the bad comes, all of a sudden, where are you, Lord? This happens. This happens. And he's just showing you what God is about to do. You see right here, he says, one, God has showed Pharaoh what what he is about to do. I put this right here. I put it in blue so where you can see it. Pharaoh, he said the dream is one. God has showed you, Pharaoh, what he is about to do. And the problem with us, we have all this good time, this good years, all these things to go on, and as soon as he changed that season, wherein have you loved us, Lord? Wherein have you loved us? That's an interesting statement. Interesting statement. 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of a drought. The dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. So through this same lens, Joseph not only served as an interpreter of dreams, also was a prophetic voice to him. His interpretation embodies this divine wisdom, provide the forewarning, the guidance to Pharaoh, to the people of Asia, demonstrating how the same divine wisdom continued to guide us through these various transitions of life, from the time of prosperity to the time of hardship. That's on each and every one of us. You can't even get around it. Can't even get around it. But the most foolish thing that you ever see people do, when you talk to people, you ask them, how you doing? They say, I'm blessed and highly favored. I'm blessed and highly favored. And then when the whirlwind comes, you ask them, how you doing? All of a sudden, they sitting there, where are you, Lord? Keep that in mind. So the same thing as Joseph, divine role is interpreted, guide to this deeper text. The same you see here in Genesis 41. We'll go down to 36. Drop down some. We'll look at some. We'll actually start at 33. We'll go at 33 and go down some. We'll do it there and build up to it. It says, now therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet. So Joseph is not looking for him to be put in that position. See, that's humble. That's humble. Now, for that reason, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise to set over the land of Egypt. And let Pharaoh do this. Let Pharaoh do this. And appoint officers over the land and take up a fifth part of the land of Egypt in 7 plenteous years. He's not even looking to do it. He's not even looking to be the one to do it. But he gets better. And let them gather all the food in those good years and come and lay up corn and under the hand of Pharaoh. Let them keep food in the cities. And you see right here. And the food shall be for store in the land and against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt. In the land perish not through the famine. That was the whole point of this. But how many of us have this problem? See, when we looked at 33, and it's telling us to set these wise men there, to set them there, Joseph even suggesting, put some wise men there, appoint to manage the situation. He's not even, I just got out of jail. You just call me, I believe I'm going back down to jail anyway. So appoint some people over this. Underline the necessity for strong leadership in a time of a crisis. Where these leaders of the world today, and there are none. Not one. And people sit there and they put all these people there, call them leaders. And it's not one. First thing they talk about, first thing they want is what you chip in. You chip in. This person must demonstrate wisdom in decision making, in foresight and planning. That's what he need to have. But we don't look for those. We look for somebody who got a whole lot of gift to gab and tell you a whole bunch of lies, and then the first thing they say, if you like what you heard, chip in. Help support the channel. They not giving nothing to YouTube. $34. Look how he said it. Let Pharaoh do this. He didn't say, Pharaoh, put me in charge. Let Pharaoh do this. Do what? Appoint officers. This is what you do, Pharaoh. Pharaoh, do this. Appoint officers. Take up a fifth part of the land. The 7 years of plenty. Advice given by Joseph reflects the importance of this strategic resource of allocations. Taking a fifth part during the plenteous years. To just setting aside these resources during this time of abundance to cope with the future crisis. The strategy can align the saving in this contingency of planning of this personal finance the same way that they do with this finance in strategic money management. Even today. This is why everybody sit there talking about how well these politicians are, and you can go look at the world, at the United States budget, and you can see we always in the hole. Always. Why? Can't nobody balance the budget, but they're talking about how wise they are. We talk about how great they are. Same thing. Get down to 35. Let them gather all the food. Sure, let them gather all the food that those good years that come. Joseph is prescribing a plan that's a central storage in the preservation of the surplus and a resource for it, to where they can put away and they can store it for emergency supplies that create this nest of societal, ensuring that the buffering during these hard times. You don't see him put himself over nothing. Nothing he did. Same thing. We just going down the list. Going down a list. 36. In that the food shall be stored to the land against the 7 years of famine. He's telling you exactly what he's doing. This is what you need to do. The overall goal, the overall plan is survival and to sustain during the years of famine. That's what it's all about. Utilizing the resources effectively to prevent calamity. Similarly to how we use strategic planning to mitigate risks in various fields today, but they don't. Could we still let people do this with money? Joseph demonstrated through what he's telling them, all these practical applications, this divine wisdom that transform and forewarning given by God into strategic planning to prevent disaster, highlighting the need of a prudent leadership, strategic planning, foresight for effective resource management, learning, and to remain, I'm talking about profoundly reliant upon the contemporary lives of each and every person that was there. Joseph demonstrated this. When the famine descended as prophesied, Egypt was prepared due to Joseph's wise administration. It was Joseph's wise administration. Came from where? Came from God. Let's go down. Let's go down a little bit. Let's look at verse 56. 41:56. Genesis 41:56. You see here. It says, and the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And this is where the key is, what I told you from the beginning. And all the countries came to Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. Joseph. Actually, let's look at something. Let's look at something. When God is with you, you have a lot of people claim God is with them and God ain't nowhere close to them. But a lot of people claim that. Oh, God with me, and God ain't nowhere around them. In Genesis chapter 37, looking at verse 5. This was Joseph with his brothers. Joseph dreamed a dream. And told it to his brother, and they hated him yet the more. It's interesting, isn't it? Verse 6. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. And remember, this is where they just downright hated this dude. And remember, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaves arose and also stood upright. And remember, your sheaves stood round and about, and they made abstinence to my sheaves. They made abstinence to mine. So now we know it's more of an issue. Why? You're going to get into it. And his brother said unto him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? Are you serious? Or should thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet even more for his dreams. They hated him for his dreams. You see, it's saying it. They yet hated him for his dreams and for his word, because he told it to them. But he dreamed yet another dream. Why? The Most High ain't thinking about you. The Most High not thinking about me and you, about how we feel, because this guy is having these dreams and he telling it to us. He said, remember, I dreamed a dream more. And remember, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars shall made abstinence to me. Now they ticked. Why? Because he didn't include mama and daddy. He didn't include mama and daddy. Why? Verse 10 tells you. Verse 10 clears it. And he told it to his father. So now he done told this to Jacob. And he said, and his brother. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast? Boy, have you gone crazy? Dad, it's a dream. What can I do? I can't stop that. The dream is dream. What in the world you done dream? Shall I and thy mother, including thy brethren, indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? Are you serious? Joseph, you done gone crazy. boy, you done blew a tube. I'm telling you, you done blew a tube. But it gets better. It always gets better. We'll look at something in 45, Genesis 45. And we're going to pick this up at verse 4. Reason why we want to look at something. So we're going to go back to the beginning. So now we're going to put all this together. So Joseph said it to his brother. So this is talking about when his brother's there. And he talked to him. This is what we said the first time. This is where we left off at the beginning. But we had to find out what happened. So he said to his brother, he said, come near me. Come near to me. I pray you. Come on near me. I pray you. Come on over here. Talk to me. He says, and they came near. And he said, I am Joseph. I'm Joseph. What? I'm Joseph. The brother whom you sold in Egypt. Yeah, remember me? Y'all sold me in Egypt. Y'all don't remember that? Y'all the one sold me. Verse 5. He says, now, therefore, don't be grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. He sent me here to preserve y'all butts. Because if not, Pharaoh wouldn't have did this and everybody be dead. Now you see the issue. Now you see what he's talking. Now you see how he's playing this out. God will make it for good. But we see this. Verse 6. For these 2 years have the famine been in the land, yet there are 5 years in which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. It's a wrap. Ain't nothing going to be growing. Nowhere. And he tells it again. And God sent me before you to preserve you. You see what he sent me before to preserve you and the upholstery in the earth. He done sent me here to do this and to save your life in this great deliverance. I'm going to pause for this. I'm going to take a drink of water. Excuse me a second. Well, so you could just think about this for a second. You can see how bold he's talking now. So now he's in power. Oh, they going to listen to him now. They don't have no choice because they down there and he ruling Egypt. So he just sent me down here to save y'all, but that's why y'all here. So you see how this works. And he says, so now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. So don't think y'all sent me here. Y'all sold me into slavery, didn't care where I went. God sent me here. And he made me a father to Pharaoh, and a lord to all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. But how many people going to stay focused that way? So spiritually, this verse is signifying, although Joseph's brothers intended to harm him by selling him selling him into slavery, God had a higher plan. He had a higher purpose to preserve life, and Joseph became the vessel for God for deliverance. And he was positioned in Egypt, not by accident, but by divine orchestration, much like God uses situations in our lives. They may seem painful. They may seem disconcerting. They're going to seem a whole bunch of ways to you. I'm just letting you know. It's going to be like, man, you don't even think you was a black sheep of the family. You think you was the main pebble of the family. I don't know what's going on, but you got to remember one thing. He's using that situation for something else, to bring a greater good. So Joseph's journey of this suffering and redemption underscores the key theme to this divine providence and purpose. That's what's going on here. That's what we're trying to get everybody to see. In Proverbs chapter 19, we'll see something. Proverbs 19, we're going to look at verse 21. And you'll see it here. There are many devices in a man's heart. Many devices. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord, the Spirit of God, that shall stand. So we got a whole lot of tools in our heart. Got a whole lot of elements we can pull out. But only the Lord one is going to stand. So when we look at this all together, and we winding this on down in Genesis chapter 50, we're going to look at verse 20. As he says, but as for you, ye thought evil against me. Ye thought evil against me, but God meant it for good. God meant it unto good, to bring it to pass as in the day, to save much people alive. Are you with me? You see what he's doing? He ain't trying to save just you. I said, well, I would save you and I can save a whole bunch. So this encapsulates the essence of Joseph's journey. People are going to intend to harm you, but to accomplish the greater good, God is going to do it a whole different way. This verse underscores the sovereignty of God. The sovereignty of God. This shows you how he is. Working even through human intentions and actions, fulfilling his purpose. Joseph's story exemplifies how God uses all circumstances, pleasant or difficult, to achieve his divine purpose. This spiritual journey of Joseph recounts the scriptural. It illuminates. It serves as this profound testament, divine providence that eradicates the workings of God's purpose. But his life served as a beacon, illustrating even in adversity, God's hand guides us, often using us as instruments for his grand design in his preservation and flourishing in our life. So Joseph's story is a testament. Despite the intentions of his brothers, God's purpose of Joseph to preserve life, to rule over all their plans, drawing the inspiration from this so far, we can proceed as our lives through this adversity, as we can see that's woven in the words of Jehovah. This tapestry of life. As we continue and we considering these things, we have to look at what this echoes. We have to see how this is sculptured out. Let's look at something. We're gonna go here to Zechariah. We're gonna look at Zechariah. Zechariah. We're gonna go to Zechariah chapter 13, verse 9. I want to take you here because I want to show you something. Because I want you to really consider the story, how this is sculpted, this intended crafting, this masterpiece, chiseled and strike through this raw, unshaped stone in this plan that's disrupt. And yet, each stroke of a sculptor unveils a form. Every time the sculptor hits that rock, it reveals a different form. The beauty is yet hidden within this rough exterior. Similarly, the same thing we can look at our lives. Chiseled. So this chiseling, this blows, these trials that we're going through, the hardship and all these things, we being chiseled to be revealed as a masterpiece of God's purpose. In this process, we are being refined, molded, brought closer to the true spiritual potential. So this echoes, as I was saying right here. It said, and I will bring the third part through the fire. We got to go that way. I'm going to bring a third part through the fire. And I will find them as silver is refined, and try them as gold is tried. And they should call upon my name, my way, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people. They will say, the Spirit of God is my God. We see what's happening. We see how this echoes out. We see how this game now is being played. In Wisdom of Solomon, and we're going to see pick up a little bit more here. In chapter 3, we're going to go to verse 5. We want to take this and understand from one of the wisest men that ever lived in this world. It tells us, it says, and have been a little chastened. We've been chiseled. We've been shaped. We've been molded greatly. Shall be greatly rewarded. We got to be we just got to keep pushing. Just keep pushing. People can say, just keep pushing. People, how you doing? I'm blessed and highly favored. Don't do like boo-boo. They sitting there like, man, this dude is going through hell. They look at you and say, hey, won't tell you what? I know what's at the end for me. I'm just going to keep pushing. Dude, man, I give up. Dude, I'm going to keep pushing. He's chiseling me. They should be greatly rewarded, for God proved them and found them worthy for himself. You see it right here. You just keep pushing. I care less what, man, how you do? Dude, I just got to keep moving. Man, he done knocked that dude down so many times, and he just keep coming. Yeah, he gonna keep coming. Verse 6, it tells us, comparing gold in the furnace, have ye tried them, and received them as burnt living. You see that? Burnt as a burnt offering. These living offerings. You just coming through. You coming through drunk, dragging. I don't care. You coming through. You make room. I'm coming. Each and every one of you. Many people gonna turn. Soon as that little pressure hits, some gonna turn. But everybody ain't gonna turn. Many people gonna turn. But a lot of them not gonna turn. So this story of Joseph, this shining beacon, this divine orchestration. So this betrayal, being sold to slavery by his brothers, led through the furnace, affliction, yet he was steadfast in faith, enduring the patience. He emerged not as a victim, but he was the key instrument in God's grand plan. Despite all his hardships, Joseph stayed attuned to God's voice, becoming the vessel throughout which God delivered salvation to an entire nation, all Israel, during the time of a famine. So we need to embrace this divine wisdom, this inherent story about Joseph. And he's going to get way more, because I'm even bringing one clearly up on Joseph's coat. Oh, we got to get into that one, because that's another door that we have to open. This shows us the receptive on how Jehovah's voice, this way, this guidance, how we continually move forward. So we just need to make sure, as this spiritual discourse centered the narrative on what we're talking about with Pharaoh's dream. Pharaoh's dream unmasked the intriguing concept that dreams, regardless whether they emerge from Pharaoh, the king of sin, can indeed be divine communication intended for only God's elect. It came from the king of sin, but it went through who? The king of sin. He couldn't interpret the dream. Who had to interpret it? God's elect. So this embodied the potent revelations. Even though dreams sprang up out of Pharaoh's slumber, it was Joseph figure seemingly insignificant, a slave turned prisoner who was divinely selected to decipher a profound meaning to dream this passage, that this impeding years of this famine serving the sign of God, warning transmitted through at least the medium this heathen king dream. I'm telling you, this is crazy. The question arises. Who was beneficiary of the warning? Who was beneficiary of the warning? It was directed towards God's elect, that represented by Joseph is the narrative. That's the problem. That's the problem people got all over the world. You got some of God's elect people all over the world, and they doing just what we doing. That's why we in the dungeons. We in the prison houses. We on the low totem pole. But you see this here, in the same as it tells us, as Scripture says, because some of them going to also fake it. And we'll see this here in Romans chapter 9, verse 6. And it tells us, not as though the word of God is taken non effect, for they are not all Israel, which are of Israel. No, all of them not Israel. All of us not Israel. And it gets even better, Neither because they are the seed of Abraham, just because you are the seed of Abraham don't make you. It says they are all children, but in Isaac shall the seed be called. You actually want to tell you a big pet peeve. You have a lot of people. They on YouTube. They do a lot on Facebook. They call themselves something Yasharella. They're gonna always do Yasharella. They don't even know that's the dumbest thing you can do. Don't have nothing to do with Hebrew. Don't have nothing to do with Paleo Hebrew. Don't have nothing. Has everything to do with stupidism. Because it's nowhere but the Yasharella, and then they make it up. Then they say this is what it means, and it don't mean anything. Don't have a meaning nowhere. This is what we're good at doing. We good at doing this. Creating something that's that. Same thing they do Shabbat. Shabbat don't have nothing to do with nothing. Something that's created from nothing. Don't have nothing to do with God. 100% Yiddish, but they'll sit there and say this Shabbat. Oh, this Shabbat. Really, this Shabbat. What in the hell is Shabbat? Show it to me. Show it to me. Show it to me in the Bible. It ain't there. Reason it ain't there, because there's no such thing as Shabbat. This is what's going on. This is why this happens. This is why this continues to move forward. This is why we got to keep this understanding. And that's why it tells us this right here in verse 8. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God. You're not the children of God. We got too many of us of the flesh. This underscores the critical spiritual principles. Being the physical descendants of Abraham does not guarantee you membership of the spiritual Israel kingdom. Don't guarantee you none of that. But you got people sitting there, everybody always talking, everybody going to hell. All of a sudden, everybody go, if heaven going to be just like what the people who's acting here is, why in the hell people need to die? Because then hell going to come again. Because when you go in the next life, that same hell going to be there. Them same type of people going to be there. That's why it don't make no sense. This underscores this principle. This showing you by the physical descendants of Abraham, it does not guarantee you membership. Let's understand something now as we closing this. In Wisdom of Solomon, we're going to look at 6:22. It says, for wisdom, what she is, Jehovah, what she is, and how she came up, I will tell you, and I will not hide mysteries from you, but will seek her out from the beginning of her nativity and bring the knowledge of her into light, and will not pass over the truth. Exactly the point. Exactly the point. That's the extent of this understanding. God's elect. I want you to keep this in mind. God's elect. God's 100% elect. I want you to understand something real clear. In Mark chapter 4, verse 11, we're gonna go there in a second. But I want you to think about something. We are beckoned to pursue this wisdom. Not where people keep going, well, let's Google this, see what this looks like, and Google that. Let's look in the concordance. That's not God's elect. That's why so many people gonna bust hell wide open based on that alone. And this is the mystery of God, and God reveals this, and he manifests this stuff through dreams. So the same thing with kings of sin, much like Joseph, many of us are chosen to be interpreters, deciphering not only the dreams, the parables, these complex things that is woven in the scriptures. Furthermore, it resonates with as he declared. That's what I want to show you here. In Mark chapter 4, verse 11, he said unto them, unto you is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God. Not to the kingdom of God. To you. It was given to you today to understand the mysteries of the kingdom of God. But unto them, they're without. These things are done in parables. That's why this Bible is set up in a parable setup. And he explains this clearly to us. Seeing, they may see, but not perceive. That's why they look at it and they read it carnally. That's why they look at it and they write another book, because they say this is kind of complicated. And it's not. You got to do the book perceptually. You got to understand how the words work, how they walk. So seeing it, they don't perceive it, because what they're going to do, they're going to Google it. Google it. Let's Google it. Let's go get a concordance. In hearing, they may hear but not understand. Least at any time they should be converted, and their sins should be forgiven them. No, he wants them to stay right there in it. That's why they stay where they stay. Yahweh Shai, Jesus' words, emphasize the mysteries of the kingdom of God are revealed only to the elect. They're the ones blessed with the spiritual discernment to comprehend the divine truth embedded in the parables and these dreams. So we need to reflect, each and every one of us from here out. We need to reflect on Joseph's journey for this example for God's elect. We got to reflect on his journey for God's elect, who received and interpreted the divine signs that thereby came as a savior to an entire nation. His story serves as a spiritual compass, and it's encouraging each and every one of us to open up the divine signs as what we see. This is why it's so important. To where, regardless of their unexpected sources, his life affirmed that God and his unchanging nature communicated to each and every one of us the multitude ways that is encapsulated in the symbol of allegories, parables, that led us to profound comprehension of his divine purpose. So this indeed draws us close and allows us to see Joseph's narrative, not only to be enlightened, but to reflect on his spiritual journey. Much like Joseph, many of us stands as the modern day as one of God's elects. Our experiences, our trials, and our triumphs. They're going to serve as divine signs, entrusting us to interpret and to share as Joseph did with Pharaoh's dreams. So each individual story, the challenges we face, the obstacles we overcome, the victories we celebrate, we can indeed serve as a spiritual compass. Others to navigate their own spiritual journeys. We are called to remain open to receiving these divine signs in respective to their sources, which may be unexpected by heathens, these heathen leaders. So this story is a testament of God's unchanging nature, to remain and to communicate the array ways that often cloaks the symbols of these allegories, the spiritual discernment, unravel, leading us to a deeper understanding and divine purpose as we follow our own spiritual path. We need to remember Joseph's life served as a grander divine plan. Just as his dream interpretations, action plan to preserve life, our own spiritual life journey is the impact beyond our own personal lives, but it's part of a larger divine narrative, intricately woven in God's hand. And our lives is just a mere antidote, a similitude that contain wisdom and guidance for each and every one of us. So we need to embrace our roles as God's elect, nurturing the divine wisdom within to us. We can interpret to understand the signs given to us through all actions of our life stories to become beacons to divine wisdom and guide, to God's profound comprehension and its divine purpose. So this Joseph life is suitable to demonstrate God does indeed walk through us as inspected as a powerful way for preservation, flourishing in each and every one of our lives. That's Joseph. So hopefully through this part, you guys got some very good understanding on this. We're going to go a little bit deeper on this. So if you understand this, the other one you will really like. And just for saying the same thing is this evening at 3 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern, we will be having language of biblical law. That's something for class. Make sure you're on time, because after 3:05 I am going to lock it out to where if you come in late, then you won't be able to get in. So make sure that you're there early, and then we'll be able to let you in to where you can do it. Because after 3:05 or 5:05 or 6:05, it'll be locked. So with that, I hope that everybody did get some understanding on this, and as we go through, and as we continue to look at everything that we need to look at on Joseph, what we are up against and what our lives' plans are, and we should not ever, ever, ever try to question God on the direction that he's taking us. So with that, I say to each and every person, until next time, I say to you, Shalom.